Welcome back to Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, Coach Santino DeFranco, and Feezy. Today, we're going to talk UFC 327, Jiri Prochazka versus Carlos Ulberg. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Casillas Center in Miami, Florida. We got one of the most exciting fighters in the history of the sport, Jiri Prochazka. I was going to say putting the belt on the line, but actually it's a vacant title fight, and he's taking on the streaking, emerging Carlos Ulberg. Let's not waste any time. Coach Santino, welcome to Half the Battle.
Thank you much. Thanks for having me. So if we got Feezy on, does that mean I'm Steezy? I think that I'm going to go by Steezy the rest of the pod right now and just run it. See how
I like it.
Run in the dirt.
That works.
Man, so you want to go right into it? We're going straight into the mainframe.
Yeah. In 1 second. First, I want to introduce my first-time guest because this is the first time I've met both of y'all. Feezy, welcome to Half the Battle.
Thanks, man. It's been a long time coming. I'm very excited. I've been a fan of this show for a long time. You know, actually, this is one of the reasons why I started capping. I remember just driving to my now wife's apartment back in the day, just listening to the show and having my own predictions, and then going back and being like, damn, Dan was right all the time. But sometimes I'd be lucky and I'd be like, I knew it. So that gave me a little bit of confidence. So I appreciate you. I was just telling you before the show, the grind is crazy. You know, I'm really proud of myself for doing this every week. And then when I come to realize, like, man, I'm still a rookie in this game. You know, you got guys like you that have been doing it since, what did you say, UFC 180 something?
Yeah, 189.
189. That's nuts. So I hope I could have that type of longevity, and just give me your flowers there, because I know that shit's a grind.
I appreciate that. Well, gentlemen, let's not waste any time. Let's get right down to business, because in this main event, we got the former champ, Jiri Prochazka. He's 32-5-1, taking on Carlos Ulberg, who's 13-1. Currently, they got it a pick 'em with a slight lean on Jiri Prochazka. He's -125. The comeback on Ulberg is +105. Ulberg, 2 years older at 35, an inch taller at 6'4", but it's actually Jiri Prochazka that has a 3-inch reach advantage at 80 inches of reach. So unbelievable matchup in the main event. I mean, I couldn't think of two more qualified candidates to fight for the vacant belt. And I know who the fans want to win. I mean, obviously Jiri, he creates that perfect storm, and he's just a very unique fighter, man. I mean, you know, in I believe 38 pro fights, 36 of them have ended inside the distance, and he's got 28 knockouts on his record. So he puts on the exact kind of fights that the fans want to see, but it takes him a second to warm up, you know, before he taps into the Jiri verse and creates the perfect storm, as he likes to say. But this guy Ulberg, he's slick, he's smooth, he's paid his dues. And one thing that I want to bring up before either of y'all go is that the difference in experience when both these guys debuted in the UFC. Jiri came into the UFC with like a 26-3 record. Ulberg came to the UFC at 4-0. You know, so when people hold against him, you know, the Kennedy and Zechiku fight, to me, that's what's called paying dues. When you're 4-0, you have to go through these kind of experiences before you can get to where he is now, 13-1, 14-1, finally fighting for that belt. So I think this guy has crushed the grapes. The question, Coach Santino, is will he drink the wine Saturday night?
Man, Jiri, the crazy thing about Jiri is, first of all, just as a coach, I could not imagine being his coach in every single fight going, is he about to die? Is he about to die? What's he going to do? No, Jiri, don't do, no, oh, it worked. Okay, never mind. I mean, that would, like, everything that guy does is unorthodox. Like, he doesn't know what a jab or a cross is. He knows what a left sword punch is and a right sword is. Like, the dude's in his own world. He's in his own verse. And his style, he's so off rhythm. And I think that's what people have a really hard time dealing with, because people are used to seeing things a certain way. When you throw a jab, okay, they parry, they slip, they do this, whatever. And that's kind of how these things work. When you throw a jab at Jiri, he could do a cartwheel, and you're like, whoa, wait, what? That's not what I'm expecting. And so it freezes a lot of people. They don't know what to do. They don't know the attack, because the thing that they've done for so long isn't even in the realm of possibility. You know, when you fight a guy like Jiri, and he is long and he is awkward, and he does hit hard. he can also grapple. It's weird. He's the best worst grappler, to fight for a title in that division, because his wrestling is not amazing. Even his jiu-jitsu isn't amazing, but he somehow like look at the Glover Teixeira fight. I mean, he makes people work, and he, gets them tired, and then he's just squirming. He just won't die. He's like a fish out of the water, just kind of flailing around. And next thing you know, you're tired trying to grab him. And then on the other side, you've got Ulberg, who is precision. I mean, that dude is so sharp. He is such a sharpshooter. I don't know if I've ever seen him do anything wrong. Of course, we saw him with the Kennedy fight. He adrenalined himself out, and Jiri is adrenalined himself out as well. But he did it when he was 3-0, fighting guys who shouldn't be in there with him. Ulberg did it when he was 4-0 and in the UFC, and those stakes are different. We've seen him kind of grow up a little bit, and we've seen him kind of go from swinging for the fences to taming it a little bit to being so passive with, was it Fabio Charant, that we're like, dude, just kill him already, and everything in between. But the thing with Ulberg is, like I said, he doesn't make mistakes. His striking is so clean. He's never off balance. He's always in line. He's always in range, and he does all of the right stuff. I like Ulberg here. I always say, tell my fighters all the time, it's not who's better, it's who messes up first. And generally, who's going to mess up first is the person with lower basics that just aren't as good as the basics, or somebody whose cardio goes out the window. And I mean, I think Ulberg's basics are significantly better than Jiri's, but I'm not sure about his cardio, so I think it'll balance out a little bit. But I like Ulberg to walk out of there with a belt.
Before you go, Feezy, I want to comment on two things that Santino said. Number one, you talked about how, like, normally when most people jab, you parry it and, slip, whatever the case may be. And it's so funny you brought that up, because if you pull up that fight between Jiri and Volkan Oezdemir, he got caught with a couple jabs and he's like, oh yeah. Then he starts putting his forehead into the jab. It's like, hit me with that again, And then, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, how do you react to that? Like, we're used to, if I punch you and it hits you, you go, oh, I don't want to get hit again. Like, that's how humans work. And then he's over there, like you said, putting his forehead in and just eating him. You're like, do I punch him again, or do I run away?
And then the other comment I wanted to make, you brought up the Charant fight, which, just watching it as a fan, it was terrible. But the reason why he didn't push the issue, and I think that actually, when you fast forward to the Jan Blachowicz fight, a similar thing happened. Ulberg is primarily a counter fighter. He doesn't want to go first. He wants you to go first. So when he's got a guy like Charant who's terrified of him running away the whole time, he's not going to take any unnecessary risks. And same thing with Jan Blachowicz. They're like, come on, you go. No, you go. So it kind of was like that kind of tepid staring contest. Whereas Jiri doesn't care who you are, who you know, where you're from. He's going to go right after you. So he's going to leave those openings for, I think, Ulberg's best weapons are obviously his calf kicks, but that left hook. You seen that combination he hit on Negumariano?
Yeah.
That was disgusting. And it's going to be open here.
The other thing that he does, though, really well, though, and this is such an underutilized weapon in MMA, is the jab. Is everybody, like, go back to boxing 101, and we're starting to see, like, for a long time, boxing didn't work in MMA in the sense where it's like those little gloves, people weren't doing the right stuff, and they weren't high enough level boxers to run with high enough other skills. So it's like, if you were a good boxer, you just, look at James Toney, shot in and submitted in 2 seconds. But we're starting to see good boxing come into MMA. And Ulberg has such a beautiful jab, and it's so precise. And it doesn't have to, like, knock Jiri out. It just has to keep him away, use it defensively, and measure and kind of stay out there, keep his range. I think Ulberg could win this fight with his jab and that right calf kick, like you said. I don't think he needs, if he lands that left hook, great. I don't even know if he needs it.
Interesting. Now, Feezy, get in here, man. Talk to me. What do you think about this fight?
That's a great breakdown. I agree with a lot of what you just said, Coach. Ulberg, he's perfect everywhere when it comes to striking. He rarely makes any mistakes. The one thing that I do think is going to be the deciding factor here is going to be that championship experience. Just watching tape and rewatching that Jiri versus Glover fight, like the amount of times where the fight was almost stopped on both sides, you know. I'm not a fighter, but I could only imagine the level of emotion to be like, fuck, I got this guy. Like a couple more strikes, he's done. Versus, shit, this guy's mounted on me. A couple more strikes, I'm out. You know, that level of mentality to go out there till the last second is the reason why I have to go with Jiri. You know, I love Ulberg. I've been a huge fan forever, you know. I just think at this stage of his career, the lights might just be too bright for him. We've seen how he looked against Jan Blachowicz. He looked great the first round, you know, first of the second round as well. But then when things didn't start going his way, when those shots didn't have that pop behind them, he had a mix of fatigue and doubt in him. And I just think those emotions and those characteristics against a guy like Jiri, he's going to smell blood in that water. And like Dan said, he's just going to go into that Jiri-verse, forget about any type of technique, and just go for the kill. And I think that's what makes him so special. You know, he just goes out there in this violent flow state where he's just able to crack his opponents in awkward angles I don't think anyone could prepare themselves for. You know, to this day, I don't think Dominick Reyes knows how that fucking elbow got to him. You know, it's one of those fighters that you could watch tape, you could prepare for, but until you're there with him, you're sitting there like, what the fuck is going on? And we've kind of seen it with a lot of his opponents. So I think that's going to be the determining factor. I think if Ulberg doesn't put him away in the first 2 rounds, because he's a great counterpuncher, you know, he has a great left hook, and Jiri is open for that all day. If he doesn't take advantage of that in the first 2 rounds, I think Jiri's going to be able to mix it up and potentially even win a decision here. You know, this is going to be a fight where it's not just about being great at one specific thing. You got to have that championship mindset to get in here. And because of that, I have to lean with Jiri. I know the dogs have been doing great 2026, but I think if your name isn't Alex Pereira, Jiri is the right champion for the division.
I mean, I think that both of y'all bring compelling arguments to the table. And here's my honest opinion. These guys run it 10 times, you will see a different outcome 10 times. And in fights like that, I tend to just take the underdog because, like, again, I can make the same case you made for Jiri. I can make the same case that you made for Carlos. Carlos got that plus next to his name, so I'm going to take him for that reason. But, I mean, am I going to be surprised if Jiri pulls him into that Jiri-verse and, you know, creates the perfect storm? No. Am I going to be surprised if Ulberg chops him down, finds an opening for that left hook? No. Neither scenario is going to surprise me. If I'm the book, I'm charging you chalk on both, but there's currently a little bit of plus money on Ulberg, so I'm going to lean his way. But may the best man win. This should be a hell of a fight, gentlemen.
Yeah, the true winners here are going to be the fans, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Well, see, I hope so. We always say, you know, you say that with stuff like this, and then the weird stuff happens. You guys remember Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker? I think it was. It was like,
oh, man,
those two fought, and it was like, all right, this is going to be chaos. These guys bring it. And then they just stared at each other, like Derek Lewis and Ngannou. It's like, let's stare at each other for 25 minutes. You know, and so
hey, third time's the charm, coach. Third time's the charm.
I know. I hope so. I hope so. Because we've got Ulberg, who, if Jiri doesn't actually press the pace and get inside in Ulberg's face, he could. I think it's be hard for Jiri to have a boring fight, but I think it'd be very easy for Ulberg to have a boring fight. Give him a couple, couple considerations, and we could have a boring fight. I don't think it'll happen, but man, I hope you don't jinx it.
No, I don't think it will, because Jiri won't allow that, right? Like, again, the reason we talked about the Jan Blachowicz fight or the Fabio Sharon fight was those guys, they, you know, you go first. No, you go first. Jiri doesn't give a shit who you are. He's going first. So, yeah, I think he's going to force a fight. And as a result, I think we're going to get, well, not our money's worth, but we're going to get our time spent worth. So I can't wait, gentlemen. Now, co-main event of the evening in the light heavyweight division. We got Azamat Murzakanov. He's 16-0, welcoming Paulo Costa to the light heavyweight division, who's 15-4. Currently, they got it Azamat minus 190. The comeback on Paulo's plus 165. So Azamat is 36, allegedly. Paulo is 34. Paulo, a bit taller at 6'1", has a half inch of reach at 72 inches of reach. So interesting fight. Because I got to say, Paulo definitely looked the best he's looked in a long time. That last fight against Roman Kopylov, I haven't seen a glimpse of that version of Paulo since maybe the Yoel Romero fight, which that version of Paulo was elite as far as I'm concerned. And, obviously he pulled an epic stunt against Adesanya. Kind of hasn't been the same since, minus the Kopylov fight. But we know that if you take it to Kopylov, he kind of, withers a little bit. I mean, Carl Roberson tapped that guy out. And for whatever reason, people love disrespecting Murzakanov. I don't know if it's because of the physique, if it's because I don't know what it is. But like I remember when he was fighting Rakic, I was like one of the only people picking Murzakanov, and I was picking him by knockout, and Rakic was everybody's play of the week. And then, they're making a big deal about the face-off. Oh, my God, this guy's 6'6", and this guy's 5'9". And, dude, anytime you count this guy out and you disrespect him, he knocks your favorite fighter out. And the thing about it is, the reason why people are kind of down on him is because the third round against Dustin Jacoby, where, he fatigued badly, but you got to take into consideration, he was knocking a glory striker around all over the place. And when, like Feezy said regarding that Glover and Jiri fight, where you think you have the finish, you adrenaline dump a little bit. Well, Murzakanov thought he had to finish multiple times against Dustin Jacoby. And, last round he gassed, but he still dominated 13, 14 minutes of that fight. So I personally don't hold that against him. And I just think that until he fights like a top 3 guy, I'm not picking against this guy. I think he's criminally underrated. Paulo, I got a lot of respect for at his best. For MMA standards, his hands are on point, decent body kick too. And he's a physical specimen. Like, I compared him to Yoel Romero back when he fought Yoel. I felt like he was the new school Yoel. I just haven't seen that. And then when punching bags like Marvin Vettori are setting significant strike records on your face, what do you think a guy like Murzakanov is going to do? I know 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2 in MMA, but before the fact, I got Murzakanov here, and I think he's being disrespected again, Coach.
Yeah, first of all, the fight's at 205. So Paulo is moving up to 205, and so we got to decide how does he look. I don't think it's a great move for Paulo in terms of. I think it's probably a well overdue move, and it's probably a good move in terms of making weight. But what does it do to his psyche knowing that, look, he's missing weight at 185 and not even trying and going on these benders and having rough weight cuts? Now he doesn't have to lose 20 more pounds. Do you think he's running? Do you think he's dieting? Or is he just chilling? Oh, my weight's good. Well, what about
I think he's at the Brazilian churrascaria eating some picanha medium rare is what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I know Paulo, so I hate to say bad things about people I know, because he's trained with us, a lot over at Fight Ready. And you would think he would be like the persona of Paulo. You'd think he'd be like a real asshole or something. He is the nicest, sweetest, most polite human you'll ever meet. Doesn't matter where I was on the mat. He would come in, go find me, shake his hand, shake my hand. Hello, coach. Nice. And then go and get change and whatever. And he really is a good human, even though you don't, we see the persona and we kind of think he's a little bit of a shit talker. The thing with Paulo is that he doesn't want to be coached. He's running all over the place. His brother is his coach. I know the people who
seriously, wait, hold on. His brother's his coach?
Yeah, the guy that you've seen in his corner, the Brazilian guy, about 5'10", 185 pounds, something like that. That's his brother.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, Captain America, who is, has been with us with Henry, has been down in a lot of his camps, and you're supposed to meet at, we'll say 2 p.m. and it's 4 p.m. and he's not there yet. And then it's 6 p.m. and then it's 8 p.m. and then it's 2 a.m. and he's like, hey guys, come in and spar. And that's just standard. That's just standard fare for a Paulo Costa training camp, that it's just, you don't know. And getting more into the actual technical things now, he has a beautiful right kick. So Paulo's right kick is just phenomenal, and he spams the hell out of that. He does have good boxing, but he hasn't been using it as much lately. He's been using his kicks a lot more. When he first came into the UFC, it was all hands, and now it almost seems like he's trended almost the opposite way, where he's almost all kicks. His hands are good. His body work is good. His chin, the dude has a chin for days. So he can take a beating, and even his cardio, even when it's bad, because sometimes he has decent cardio, sometimes he has bad cardio, but he will push through. He won't quit fighting. Like, he will go to the bell, and then you'll see him die and fall over. So you got to love that about Paulo. But then again, you're facing Murzakanov, and you said it already. He does so much so well, and I've been on the same kick lately, the trend of everything, and I'm trying to not make things spectacular in terms of breaking down fights. And it really is skill for skill. Who are the really technical good fighters? Those generally win more often than not. And Murzakanov, he has that little floaty stance. All right, he's kind of bouncing. It's almost it's a very Russian European style boxing stance. And if you watch, I always relate him to Igor Vovchanchin. If anybody watched him back in the day, he's got that little like left arm high low, and he's short and he's bouncing. His takedown defense is phenomenal. His wrestling is phenomenal. Everything is right down the middle, and it's precision. The same thing as I said about Ulberg, I say about Murzakanov. We just don't like him because he's short and fat and doesn't look the part. You look at Paulo and you're like, that's the guy I want to win, because I wish I could be like that. The short fat guy shouldn't win. And the short fat guy wins. You know, and then last, I'll say is, I think that the way that Murzakanov could lose this fight is volume. He is very low volume, and he is very happy to just chill and let the fight come to him and score when he's able to score. Paulo is the opposite. Paulo is all in your face, kicking. And then you just got to decide, is he going to do enough kicking and volume to negate the big straight punches of Murzakanov when he times him coming in? I'm with you. I think Murzakanov gets the win. I love Paulo as a human and just a wild, crazy ass fighter. Murzakanov is criminally underrated, and he's got a belly. Come on, just give the guy with a belly a break.
That's funny, because I literally used the exact words "criminally underrated" in my breakdown yesterday. Feezy, what do you think about this fight?
I mean, yeah, you guys are 100% right. I mean, like you guys said, Murzakanov doesn't look like what people would think would be this undefeated monster, especially putting out guys that he has put out in the past. I just don't like the fact that Costa, at this point of his career, is moving up. You know, you hit it right in the nail. You're putting so much effort into getting to 185, so that means that your camps always have to be a certain way. You got to do those sprints. You got to do those conditioning. You can't give yourself any breaks. And now, when the weight's not a concern, do you go out an extra day over the week? You know, he's a social media guy. You know, he's a great fighter, but we've seen these guys push into the social media side, and now you start thinking, like, is this your main focus? Are you 100% on your fighting, or are you 65%? And then the rest, try to do that. I think someone might take away Murzakanov's eventually. You know, no one's going to be perfect unless you're John Jones, of course. But I just don't think it's going to be Costa. You know, the person that I see beating the Murzakanov is going to be a guy that builds up as the fight goes on. You know, he might start off slow, durable first round and a half, but then starts to put in that pressure late. You know, we saw Jacoby try to do something similar, but even that, he showed good defense. You know, he's very efficient. That's the one thing I love about Murzakanov. No energy goes to waste. Everything has a meaning behind it. You know, he's an explosive striker. He has these heavy hands. And I just think Costa is the type of fighter he'll eat 2 or 3 shots to give one back sometimes, you know, especially if things aren't going his way. And I don't know if he could eat all those shots, especially at this weight division. You know, 205 is going to be completely different from 185. Especially after those wars he went with Yoel. I don't know if he's going to be able to eat the same shots he's ate at 185 And maybe that confidence that he has in himself might bite him in the ass. Because if you're letting a guy like Vettori just kind of piece you up on the feet, if you do something similar against a guy like Murzakanov, you're going to pay for it. You know, whether he gets slapped or not, the judges are going to see that. You know, the fans are obviously going to be, whoa, you know, there's going to be a big reaction to those shots. I just don't like this matchup for him, especially moving up. I think this is a way for the matchmakers to kind of start giving some of these fan points to Murzakanov, you know, give him a good name. Costa, you know, he's very popular, moving up a weight class. Obviously, people have some type of people believe he can win, because on X, I'm kind of looking around. He's the dog for a lot of these people. And I'm like, what exactly are you guys seeing? You know, what has he shown in his last fights at 185 to make you think that he could take this undefeated, dangerous potential prospects? Oh, and I personally don't see it. I think we're going to see a 3-round fight of just Murzakanov countering, landing heavy shots, you know, both of them starting to fatigue towards the end, lots of clinching. And I just don't see Costa getting the win here. So I'm going to go with Murzakanov quite easily, in my opinion.
Sorry, were you about to go, Coach?
Yeah, I wanted two other things just to touch on with this is one, Murzakanov with the Jacoby fight. I believe he said his arm was hurt going into the 3rd round, and I think they might have said he might have broken his arm in the 2nd round. So I think that explains a lot. The other thing about Costa is that with the Kopylov fight is he was massive with Kopylov, and he could bully Kopylov around, and he could kind of push him around. We've seen when you can bully Kopylov, it's, you know, he'll wither a little bit. But also with Paulo, when he can be the bully, he's there and he's ready to go. But when he can't be the bully, he's not as dangerous and he's not as active. So it definitely is a bit of an equalizer there.
Yeah.
Featured bout in the heavyweight division, we got Curtis Blaydes. He's 19-5, taking on Josh Hokit, who's 8-0. Currently, they got it. Curtis Blaydes -120. The comeback on Josh Hokit is +100. So Blaydes is 7 years older at 35, 3 inches taller at 6'4", and has a significant 6.5-inch reach advantage at 80 inches of reach. So Feezy, I'm not even gonna set the table here. You get to go first on this one. Talk to us. Who's gonna win this fight? How do you see it going down?
I'm really excited for this fight. You know, this is one of the fights where I feel like the matchmakers set this up for a reason. You know, Curtis Blaydes, in my opinion, he's past his prime. He has some good wins on his record, but if you really dig deep and look at those wins, there's an asterisk on a lot of them, especially his last two. You know, I personally thought he lost his last fight to Kniev. I understand the stuffing of takedowns visually, but I don't know. I think Kniev did a lot more of that fight to get the judges to be on his side, but we can't complain about it. It is what it is. And the TKO win against Almeida, I don't think Blaydes won that fight. I think Almeida beat himself in that fight because he looked amazing while the fight was going his way. It's just one of those things where you put yourself in the position where I don't think you realize the mistake you're making until you go back and look at it. It kind of gave me the flashbacks in that PFL fight with Edwards. And can you remind me the champion's name currently, the Spaniard?
You talking about Tom Aspinall?
No, this is for the PFL, the recent PFL fight.
Oh, Van Steenis?
Yeah, it was like kind of the same thing. You go for the shot and you just put yourself wide open to eat these elbows. Like, what do you think is going to happen? I think anyone in that position landing those type of elbows would have similar results. So I don't give a lot of stock to that win. And we're going against a guy, Josh Hokit. You know, one, he looks extremely athletic for the division. And that's just such a fresh of breath air. Talking about the heavyweights, I love when heavyweights come in at that like lower weight. I don't like seeing these like sloppy heavyweights that just kind of like try to grind you out. I think what's gonna help him tremendously in this fight is his speed. You know, he's gonna be the way faster fighter here. He's gonna be able to stuff those takedowns. He understands positioning when it comes to grappling. I don't think Blaydes is gonna have success there. And while this is on the feet, there's nothing more dangerous than a young, full of confidence guy. And I think that's going to be the determining factor here. I think on the feet, he's going to be able to crack him. Blaydes has been cracked by some of the biggest heavy hitters in the heavyweight division. You know, taking that type of damage to your chin against guys like Derek Lewis, which flatline him, Sergey, and then the champ Aspinall. If you're talking about 100% health bar on that chin, I think that thing's at like a 60% in this point of his career. And that's what Josh Hokit is going to take advantage of. And like I said earlier, the UFC, especially now, needs a big fight. You know, let's just talk hypothetically here. Imagine Josh Hokit goes out there and puts Blaydes away in a great fashion, and Pereira goes to the White House and wins the heavyweight title. They're gonna strap a rocket ship onto this guy's back, put him to that top 5, and pray he succeeds. Imagine the lead up: Josh Hokit versus Pereira, the good old USA versus Brazil. That's what the UFC needs right now. That's what they're banking on. And I feel for that reason, on top of just the physicality and just confidence and point of their career where Josh Hokit's going up and Blaydes is kind of trending downwards, I think it's just a recipe to cash a great underdog pick right here. So because of that, I'm going to go with Josh Hokit. I'm going to really hope he gets this W and doesn't get exposed in any way, shape, or form, because I think we're in for some really great potential fights and some crazy moments if he gets this done.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And also, Hokit definitely stands out. I'm not even talking about the gimmick, like gimmick, whatever. I could care less about that. I'm talking about the fighting style, the fighting skills. You know, firstly, his wrestling credentials completely shit on Curtis Blaydes. You know, this guy's a 2-time D1 All-American. You know what I'm saying? Like, so off the bat, Blaydes' biggest, you know, claim to fame is his wrestling. Well, this guy's wrestling credentials are, you know, a couple tiers above Curtis Blaydes. Then I like how you mentioned how, you know, this isn't some dude tipping the scales at 266 pounds. He's a 240-pound heavyweight. Some of the greatest heavyweights of all time came in at that weight. Fedor, Cain Velasquez. No, I'm not comparing them to Hokit, but the fighting styles are similar. And before Cain Velasquez got his big step up in competition, you know, when he fought Chet Congo and Ben Rothwell, he was fighting guys like Jake O'Brien, Brad Morris, Dennis Stoyanich. Like, you know, who are those guys, right? So it's easy to say, well, Hokit's only been in there with, I don't even know, the Denzel Freeman and Max Jimenez or whatever. Like what's the big deal, right? Well, Cain Velasquez had only been in there with Brad Morris and Dennis Stoyanich. So what's the big deal? Chet Congo's going to kill him. Ben Rothwell's going to kill him, right? But you have to recognize the fighting style that you're looking at, and he's got that weaponized cardio. And obviously, Blaydes has paid a lot more dues, has a lot more experience. So there are some things to be concerned about, but you guys know the deal. Every champion was once a contender. Every contender was once a prospect. Every prospect was once a regional fighter. And you got to be able to gauge how far you think these guys can go and how their skills will translate as they step up in competition. And I feel like his skills are going to translate excellent here. And I also agree with you. That fight he had against Kuniev, like, firstly, that was Kuniev's UFC debut. So I'll talk about the bullshit title shot here in a second, but like now Blaydes can barely get past debutantes. And I get it. Kuniev's not your average debutante, but at the same time, you guys see it all the time. People come into the UFC with all kinds of hype, all kinds of credentials. And when they get under the bright lights for that first time, they don't, you know, sometimes they don't perform up to par. And yeah, and I still thought Kuniev won that fight. But let's talk about Curtis Blaydes' title shot. So he got a title shot off a 1-fight win streak. The only reason he got a title shot was because of the unfinished business he had with Aspinall because of the complete bullshit 15-second fluke. That's literally the only reason he got a title shot. And then you saw what happens, when him and Aspinall actually get to fight and there's no flukes. Got blown out the water in a minute. Like Feezy said, when Pavlovich knocks you out, when Aspinall knocks you out, when all these guys knock you out, and Ngannou twice, that's going to lower your chin meter. And then let's talk about Curtis Blaydes' best performances. I think we can all agree probably the Overeem fight, right? Or the Volkov fight. Guys, that was 2018. It's 2026. Like, we're going to talk about Tatiana Suarez in a bit, how she beat Carla Esparza and Alexa Grasso. Yeah, in 2018. I don't give a shit what you did in 2018. I want to know what you look like in 2026. And I think the 2026 version of Curtis Blaydes is absolutely on his way out. I think Hokit's catching him at a great time. And I think Saturday night, live at the Casilla Center in Miami, Florida, Josh Hokit's going to come out here and knock Curtis Blaydes the you-know-what out, Coach.
Yeah, I think these odds are actually lined correctly because Blaydes can backpack on somebody for a while. And we don't know what Hokit's third round and late round 2 are going to look like if he goes in there. Is Hokit going to look like Carlos Ulberg about to finish Kennedy and Chukwue and then, gassing himself out a little bit. So I have to disagree on his wrestling credentials, though. Hokit's a 2-time All-American from Fresno State. He also is a freak athlete. While he was an All-American wrestling at Fresno State, he was also the starting running back and fullback for the football team as well. So, that just shows the level of athleticism that he's at there. But Curtis Blaydes was a JUCO national champion. And do you guys know who else was a national champion that might be, compared here? John Jones. And we saw what John Jones did to the Olympian Daniel Cormier. So I'm not saying Blaydes is, going to do that to Cormier or anything, but I don't think the wrestling is going to be too far off. And we see it a lot. A lot of the JUCO national champs, the JUCO like high level guys, they just didn't have the grades or the money or whatever, the recruiting. And you'll see regularly these JUCO national champions go in and immediately All-American the next year. So I think wrestling credential wise, I think they're actually probably not credential. Being a D1 All-American is definitely I think better than being a JUCO. But I think when the wrestling goes down in the cage, I think it's kind of going to negate itself quite a bit. But I think it's somewhat comparable. Where I think Hokit, I'm really curious to see. Look, we know Blaydes' chin is bad, but honestly, if we weren't talking about his chin, if Curtis Blaydes had a good chin, there's really not much bad to say about him, right? He has good cardio. His striking is not great, but he's really, really, really freakishly long. He has these lunchbox arms that come out, and I'm curious to see how Hokit handles that. His wrestling is good. His ground and pound is good. It's really his chin, right? So it's like, so then we're going on, does Hokit knock him out? Or, because that's really the play here. And because really, otherwise, I think we'd check all of the boxes, but besides age and chin on the Curtis Blaydes side, I think skill for skill, experience. I like Hokit here. I think if he's going to win it, he's got to catch him, though. He's got to clip him. I'm not as confident as you two about the Hokit win. I think he can do it, but I think this is a really tough fight for him, especially with Curtis Blaydes' reach. He's so long, and Curtis Blaydes knows the issue with Curtis Blaydes, and when he gets caught and when he gets hurt, is when he starts to strike too much. Why is that man striking? When he doesn't strike, and we saw it with the Kuniev fight, and he was really just grabbing and pushing and grabbing and pushing. Look, we don't want anybody to win that way, but Mario Batista beat our darling of Jose Aldo by doing that. And we've seen people do that, and it's really frustrating. I don't think that's going to happen here, but man, I would not be surprised if a tired Hokit comes in around 2 or 3 and Blaydes ends up and we're all just sitting there like, separate one time, hit him one time. And I could see all of us being pretty frustrated with it. I think Hokit wins. I think his wrestling and he is training with John Jones, I believe, full time as well. I think he's going to have a good stable behind him. I'm just not as confident in somebody at heavyweight with power like that, who we haven't seen, get inside a long, gangly striker with that experience, you know, I think it could be I think this one could blow up on us. I think Hokit wins, but this one wouldn't surprise me if we all wake up Sunday morning going, shit, that was hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the experience difference is huge. There's no question about it, but it's not like we're out here paying chalk on Hokit. You know, I took him at like plus 20, plus 125-ish odds. So taking that 1 unit underdog shot, and let's see what happens, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good bet. I think you lean a Hokit if the odds were skewed differently. You know, it's not worth it. But yeah, definitely a plus 100. You've got to play that because Curtis Blaydes is too unreliable. Curtis Blaydes isn't unreliable. His chin is.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything you want to add to that, Feezy, before we move on?
No, I think you guys now nailed it. Like I said, it's value there. I think this is the perfect time. You know, you're catching them at a great time. And I got him at plus 125. I love that number. I think by the time we get to the fight, might be like minus 110. More than likely, especially after all the millions watch this show.
Yes, sir. Hey, so we're going to beat that closing line. So, you know, at the end of the day, we did our job. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between the former #1 contender, Dominick Reyes. He's 15-5, taking on Johnny Walker, who's 22-9. Currently, they got it. Dominick Reyes minus 130. The comeback on Johnny Walker is plus 110. So Reyes, 2 years older at 36, 2 inches shorter at 6'4", and Johnny Walker is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage at 82 inches of reach. So what's interesting about this fight is when both these guys came to the UFC, they kind of represented that next generation of light heavyweight. Because you remember when John Jones first got the belt, you know, he'd be a foot taller than Shogun, Rashad, Rampage, Lyoto, you know, all those guys. He'd have like 10 inches in reach against all those guys, right? So it wasn't until he fought Gustafsson the first time that, hey, here's a guy who's 6'5" with a, you know, damn near 80-inch reach. Or when he fought Dominick Reyes, you know, a lot of people thought Dominick Reyes may have won that fight. I'm not going to argue if he won or didn't win, but what I will agree with you guys on is that Dominick Reyes gave John Jones his toughest fight. And when Johnny Walker first came to the UFC, you remember the way he was knocking dudes out, the way he treated Misha Serkinov and Justin Ledet. And who was the other one? There was one more. I don't remember. Khalil Roundtree. Yeah, he knocked out Khalil in his debut. The way he treated those three guys, I thought he was going to give John Jones his toughest test. And then Corey Anderson made me look like a complete idiot. And the thing about it is, like, you want to see a guy like Johnny Walker, 6'6", 6'7", 82-inch reach. Like, hey man, can we use like a jab? Can we use like a teep? Can we have like good footwork? Because like when he gets you, and you absolutely have to be on a certain level to beat a guy like Johnny Walker. But guys that are more technically sound than him have always gave him issues. And not to mention, both these guys' chins are a liability. So it could literally come down to who gets caught first. But at the same time, I've always kind of felt like Reyes was a step above as far as the technical acumen is concerned. But I can't stamp my flag because if Reyes is, you know, twitching on the canvas, I can't act surprised, coach.
Yeah, my question is, why are we having this fight on the main card of a numbered pay-per-view? Like, what's the point? This is an undercard.
KO.
Yeah, I mean, this is an undercard fight to cut the loser. I mean, like, these guys are, I get it, they're big names, they've been in there a while. Neither of these guys are going to fight for title contention. Like, what are we doing here? I mean, this fight to me is weird. Just in terms of like who gives, because I don't, like the KO factor. Somebody dies. I mean, we all love to see a train wreck. You know, we'll all stop. Oh, there's car. Oh, there's blood on the road. Outside of that, I'm like, what are we doing? And then the other thing, just in terms of betting, breaking down the fight, like all of that, don't listen to you or me or anyone. None of us have an idea. Go out there and flip a coin, and whatever that lands on, I mean, that's your winner for this fight, because you said it. These chins, exactly. Like heads Walker, tails Dominick.
Tails.
I mean, you have a better chance of that because their chins. Whose chin is worse? I don't know. I mean, Dominick Reyes is getting hit with jabs and falling over, you know, into a coma. In Johnny Walker, that dude just gets electric. He just stiff boards his way down. So I am confused. On a technical side, there's a few things that are weird about this fight as well to me. Is Dominick Reyes is a counter puncher. He does not, he doesn't do well when he has to go first. And if you watch all of these knockouts of him, it is when he is going first, because he's a little bit slow for a heavyweight, even for a light heavyweight. And he kind of loads up, and he's a southpaw. And so he doesn't use his jab well. And so generally he's coming in with a big hook cross, or he just lunges in with that hook, and people just see it too far away and they just slide back, the typical MMA slide back counter right hand. And we see that all the time with Dominick, and he's just not able to do anything about it right now. When he is able to counter and be the guy who's going second, we saw it with the Anthony Smith fight. We saw it, was it Jacoby as well? Where he, there is somebody else who he just fought. Watch his fights. When he is hurting people, he's going second, and he sees it and he steps back. And I think the reason for that is because he is a southpaw. It gives him that extra half a second that he needs, because he doesn't have the speed to go first in these moments. But then he's fighting Johnny Walker, who is a counter puncher, who floats the cage, who circles the cage. Johnny Walker is an orthodox fighter with a longer reach, and Johnny Walker will regularly just circle right around the cage, like on the, like edging the fence. And now Dominick has got to chase him down, and he doesn't cut people off well. And now if he's chasing him down, swinging first, he's literally going right into that counter right hand of Johnny Walker. So on a technical level, it's like, man, all of the signs point to Walker. The issue with Walker is that he's freaking Walker. And so he's going to, like, we saw him in his last fight against, was it Zhang? Who did he fight last?
Zhang Yang, yeah, him.
Yeah. I mean, right off the bell, he goes in there and just like dives at his ankles. He didn't even do a takedown. Like, was he going for an Imanari roll or a cartwheel, or did he have a bet with somebody that he was going to do something wild coming off of the bell? I don't even know what that was. And he does the wildest, dumbest shit. His best move is a front kick that he uses when he's running away, and and it's just chaos in there. So, man, I don't know who wins this fight. I want to say Dominick Reyes, because I want to say that he's a little bit cleaner, and going with that cleaner thing that I've been talking about. Like, I think he is a little cleaner, but I think all of the kind of stylistic fighting, I think it kind of leans toward Walker, the way that this fight kind of plays out. Now, really, it just comes down to who touches whose chin first. Like, whoever hits the chin first wins. I mean, so somebody just has to go out there and hit just one punch. You guys need to land one punch. I'm gonna play upset here. I'm gonna go Walker for nothing more to play devil's advocate. Like I said, this is a 50-50 fight to me. Yeah. Flip a coin. And man, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Feezy, what you think, man?
Yeah, I'm with you guys, man. This fight is one of those where any man could win at any given night against each other. I think you nailed it perfectly when you said he's a counter puncher. He's going to want Walker to go first, but Walker's going to want the same thing. So it might be a standoffish type of fight. I know we're all expecting.
Yo, hold on. Is this gonna be Thiago Maeta versus Johnny Walker too?
It is right there. That's it. It's two large men staring at each other.
Yep. Both of these guys know their chins are questionable. It's gonna be a you come to me type of fight, in my opinion. I just think Walker is more keen to make that mistake first. I think what I really, and the reason why I'm kind of leaning more towards Reyes is his resurgence. After those losses that he took, I counted him out. I was like, this guy, I don't think he's coming back. I think it's going to be one of those Tony Ferguson things where it's just loss after loss after loss after loss. But, he came back, got some great wins, put out Jacoby. That's a huge for his confidence boost. And yes, he got slept by Ulberg, but in your head, this guy's going for the title, I don't think that's really a confidence killer on his part. So I still think he has that in him. I still think in his mind, he thinks, hey, I'm just a couple of wins away to try to get up there again. And that's why I think mentally he might be a lot more cautious this fight. He might be in his head like, hey, if I get slept this fight, especially against a guy like Walker, I'm definitely out of the talks of ever coming back. So I think he's going to be a lot more cautious. I think Walker is going to make the first mistake, especially once those fans in Miami are booing their ass off. Because everyone's going to be expecting mayhem from the start of the fight. But like you said, both of these guys thrive off of their opponents coming first, being the lengthier fighter, trying to catch up, especially Reyes, the southpaw. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. We might see a boring decision our way. So with that being said, I don't think I'm going to necessarily bet on either fighter as of now, unless I see a bad weight cut or something. But I think the over is the true pick on this fight.
Ooh, it's probably over 1.5 too. What's it lined at? Do you know?
I could look it up.
I don't. Right. Yeah, that's actually a good one right there because it is probably, dog odds for the over.
While you look it up, Coach Santino.
Over 1.5 plus 158. Okay. That's a great line.
That's nice.
Over under 10.5 hip feints by Johnny Walker.
Man, what I really want to know is post-retirement for both of these men, who shows signs of CTE sooner?
Oh man, gonna have to take him to that Cleveland clinic.
Cleveland clinic.
You know what I'm saying? But hey, let's move on, boys, because kicking off the main card in the featherweight division, we got the retirement fight of a WEC legend, Cub Swanson. He's 30-14, taking on the former M1 global champion. A lot of people don't know that this guy was a champion over in Russia. Nate the Train Landwehr was 18-7. Currently, they got to pick him with a slight lean on Nate. Minus 120, plus 100 on Cub. So Nate's 37, but Mr. Swanson is 42 years old, my friends. Nate an inch taller and has a 2-inch reach advantage. And I love this fight. And, if Nate doesn't lose, he's going to win. But look, in all seriousness, gentlemen, I think that, of course, Cub Swanson has a chance to knock out Nate. Nate's been knocked out more than once, and by not the heaviest hitters either. Granted, it was a knee against Herbert Burns, and it was also a knee against Julian Erosa, but still, I think in reruns, he probably beats both those guys. And I like Nate's style, man. As a fan, as a betting man, he'll give me a sweat, but like when I bet him at plus 265 odds against David Onama, he cooked David Onama to the bone. He cooked Ludovic Klein to the bone. He was on his way to cooking Morgan Charrier to the bone until he got caught in that third round. But I really feel like this fight goes past round one and Nate's not badly compromised. I think he's going to push a serious pace on Cub Swanson. I also think leg kicks can be a massive factor here, as well as get on top of Cub Swanson, man. I mean, did you see that choke he hit on Ludovic Klein? I think that tons of options are in play here for Nate Landwehr, whereas it has to be a big right hand or a big left hand for Swanson. But that being said, since this is Swanson's retirement fight, shout out Cub Swanson, because I grew up watching this guy in the WEC, always been a great ambassador for the sport, always consistently puts on the kind of fights that the fans want to see, knocked out Charles Oliveira, had an amazing fight where he beat Dustin Poirier. I mean, I got nothing but good things to say about Cub Swanson. I was in attendance when he judo throwed Dennis Seaver and slammed him so damn hard that the octagon shook. And that was literally the night where, I still have PTSD from, where Chris Weidman knocked out the great Anderson Silva. The whole place went silent. It was devastating. But all that being said, much respect to Cub Swanson. I personally think he should have went out with the Billy Q knockout. But then again, when you feel like, hey, I still got it. I mean, look what I'm doing to these guys. I'm going to go for one more. This is usually where things kind of fall off. And again, a KO won't surprise me, because Nate, doesn't always fight the brightest, and he's kind of a slow starter. But I think you get me to round 2, you get me to round 3, and Nate cooks him to the bone. So Feezy, I'm going with Nate Landwehr here, and I actually am considering a bet in this spot.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, especially what you just said about he should have retired after the Billy fight. Why not, man? You're riding off in the sunset. Great knockout, it was perfect. When I see that, part of me thinks that fighting check is just too good to not go out there and do it one more time.
Oh, it's 6 figures to show for sure.
Exactly. Like, you're talking about a guy that has paid his dues way over time and time again, you know? So I'm sure that check is way too hefty to ignore. With that being said, he has, like you mentioned, one round in him. If he doesn't put him away in one round, Nate's just going to take over. And what I love about Nate is he's only getting better as the rounds go on, you know? And that fight with David Onama, he ate some brutal shots from him. If he wasn't able to put him out, I don't think Cub's going to be able to. I feel like the reason Cub got that knockout against Billy is he didn't expect it, you know? I think Billy went out there with a level of confidence of like, I'm going to retire this guy, you know? He's older, you know? I'm going to have my way with him. I'm the lengthier fighter. I don't think he felt that shot coming, and when it landed, it was that kill shot. Can he do that to Nate? Potentially. Would I put my money on it? Hell no. You know? On top of that, if this goes into the second and third round, Nate loves doing those leg kicks. He loves mixing up the shots from top to bottom. He has in the past shown that he's willing to grapple and wrestle if he gets in any type of situation where he feels like he needs to. And with all that, I just don't see Swanson having great rounds 2 and 3. So this to me seems like an easy Nate decision. You know, he's has more in the gas tank. I feel like Cub's just taking this fight, hate to say it, for the paycheck, to show up, have one last hurrah. And I can't blame him, you know. That's what it is. And I just think Nate's going to be able to take over these second and third rounds, even the first round. You know, Nate's dangerous from start to finish. But he's just one of those fighters where if you start kicking his ass, that's just building momentum in him to be like, okay, motherfucker, I'm coming for you next round and the round after that. So keep that same energy. Unfortunately, I don't think Cub has that much energy left in him.
Coach, do you think that Cub's like getting like 175, 250 to show? Like, what do you think he's getting to show? Because his tenure, I mean.
Yeah, he's been in there a lot. I mean, he's got to have, what, 20, 25 fights in the UFC and WEC.
Plus WEC, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be making enough to make it worth his while. And that's what happens a lot of times. Is like, as long as the UFC is, look at Tony Ferguson. As long as the UFC is willing to pay the man, he's going to show up and get a paycheck. The details don't matter whether he should have been out of there 5 fights ago or not. Cub's 42. I'm 43. Like, look at us. Like, look at my face and look at that man. That picture was taken 7 seconds ago. He looks like he's 15 years old still. I mean, I can't fathom fighting at my age, and like, man, just hats off to Cub for being able to do it for this long, especially at the lighter weight classes. You see it in the heavier weight classes. You don't see it in the lighter weight classes. And the reason why you don't is the first thing that goes is the speed. People's speed goes so that's one of the first things. And the 25, 35, 45 pound weight classes are really fast. The crazy thing here with Cub is I don't know that Cub has lost any speed, which is insane to me. Cub Swanson's boxing is gorgeous. And his footwork, actually in round 1, watch his footwork against Billy Q. Oh my gosh, the way that he pivots off. I mean, it's a bull in a matador. It is something of beauty. His lead right hand is so fast and so dynamic. And I love how he throws it and will let his back leg float forward, which allows him to kind of roll out an angle as he goes, which is just something we don't get to see a lot. But on the other side of that, you already said, we already know his cardio is kind of bad. After round 1, he's going to get a little tired. All us guys in our 40s get a little tired after round 1. We need a nap. But the other thing that Cub does is he kind of has always found a way to lose. He's winning these amazing fights. And I don't mean it all the time, but there were some fights. I'll have to pull it up here in a minute. Back in WEC, I remember him just beating somebody up and then just shooting in, getting choked 10 seconds later. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what? His fight IQ doesn't always match his technical abilities, at least in the striking realm. And you guys mentioned Billy Q. Like, look, Billy Q was starting to come on. He was starting to pull ahead a little bit in that third round. And then Cub, of course, caught him. The reason why I think Cub was able to catch him the way that he did is Billy Q's not a power puncher. First of all, Billy Q doesn't move his head at all. Neither does Nate the Train. But Billy Q is just death by 1,000 punches, 1,000 cuts. He's tip, tap, tip, tap, tip, tap. And when you do that, and if you're not hurting somebody, you give them the ability to kind of catch your momentum and rhythm and then throw a big right hand like Cub did. And then I think that's exactly what Nate is going to do, is he's going to walk forward like Billy Q did. He is going to zombie his way in there like Billy Q did, except he swings a lot harder than Billy Q does. And I think he's a better, I don't want to say a better grappler, just a weirdly timed, like, I think Billy Q's jiu-jitsu is actually decent. I think his wrestling is okay. Nate just seems really efficient with his timing. He gets people covering up and then he's dragging them down and going full crazy. The only thing that I would watch for with Nate on this is we've seen him before. We saw it in the Troy fight where Nate wasn't going forward and just going full Frankenstein, pressing the fact and going. He was kind of sitting back with that high guard and blocking. And I don't know what he was waiting for, what the game plan was. Was he injured in that fight or whatnot? I think Landwehr is going to win this fight. I think it's going to be like we see all of his fights, round 2, round 3, knockout or submission, or Landwehr round 2, round 3. But in round 1, if Landwehr is just kind of standing there and not pressing the action, Landwehr needs to take the beating he's supposed to take to get Cub tired. He has to Homer Simpson this situation. And if you don't see him Homer Simpson it early, I would try and hedge your bet a little bit.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, this next one, we got the Bellator main event, because next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Patricio Pitbull, he's 37-8, taking on Aaron Pico, who's 13-5. Currently, they got a Pico minus 315. The comeback on Patricio Pitbull is plus 265. So Pitbull 38, Pico 29. Pico 2 inches taller at 5'8", and is going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage at 70.5 inches of reach. So interesting fight, because I think we kind of understand that Pico is definitely a phenom, but he's an offensive juggernaut, you know. And if people think that Lerone Murphy fight was a fluke or a one-time thing, they're simply incorrect, because I remember when a school teacher knocked this guy out and choked him out in his pro debut. I remember what Henry Corrales did the first time. I remember what Adam Borix did. So to me, you know, if he's stiff twitching on the canvas and they got to bring in the smelling salts and the flashlight and the stretcher, I'm not going to be surprised. And Patricio Pitbull has a very locked in counter heavy attack. Now, one thing I'll say about Patricio, he's getting up there. He's almost 40, so he's definitely slowed down. But in this guy's prime, I mean, if he would have had his prime in the UFC, he could have gone down as one of the best. Y'all got to see his first fight with Emmanuel Sanchez. I mean, oh my God, that's like one of the best fights I've ever seen. You weren't in his corner for that fight, were you?
No, but he's come up and trained with us, and he's another guy that's the pinnacle of humanity. That is the nicest, most respectful, just professional human you're ever going to come in contact with.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know him, but I'll definitely take your word for it. But I do know that he's a badass fighter, and so is Pico. It's just Pico, he can give it, but can he take it too? So I think Pico is going to be winning this fight until he either gets his arm raised or until he gets knocked the you-know-what out. So Santino, talk to me. I mean, do you think that Pitbull's going to give him those openings, or do you think that Pitbull can time one of these nice counters? And I'll tell you this, if there's any kind of hesitancy or some kind of, you know, being gunshot against Patricio, that is, if the crowd starts booing in this fight, then things are going Pitbull's way.
Yeah, that's funny. If they start booing, that's exactly it. I think the quick answer is I think Pico wins this, and I think putting money on Pitbull is a absolutely perfectly fine situation at plus 265 given the situation. Like he's a great dog play here, especially at plus 265, but I think that he loses. And let me tell you why. First of all, just age. Before he got to the UFC, who was it? Sergio. I think he killed himself with that Sergio fight. And what I mean by that is the weight cuts. He dropped to 35 for that. And I think that was doing that at 36 or 37, however old he was at the time, I think was rough on the body. And then he got knocked out right after that. but he's looked good since, you know, I mean, the Yair fight, Yair is Yair. Everyone's going to look weird against him. And then Dan Ige did exactly what he should have against Dan Ige. But he is small. He is getting old. What he does so well is his distance. That guy's distance management is as good as anyone we've really ever seen. Outside of like a Lyoto Machida or something like that. Like you start stepping in and he just an inch back, jumps back. We saw what he did with Chandler, just was there, patient, boom, times the right hand. His jiu-jitsu is great. His wrestling is great. Even his jiu-jitsu and submissions are a little different. Of course, you could have good jiu-jitsu, but not finish people. Whereas you look at a guy like Charles Oliveira, I'm not sure how good his quote unquote jiu-jitsu is, but his finishes and his submission game is through the roof. They're not always equal.
I mean, look, he might not be Damian Maia, but he's still a hell of a black belt. Let's not
exactly. Like he has good jiu-jitsu, but then he also has good submissions. And we see that really what he has is good front chokes. He has a good guillotine and people put their head in there, you know, and they end up getting choked out. But Pico is massive. He's huge. And the thing that Pico does, he actually does what Khabib, people put too much emphasis on distance and, you know, can they get in a range and this and that. And watch Khabib and Edson Barbosa. He wasn't out there trying to get inside and checking kicks. He literally walked toward Edson like Edson had stolen something from him off, you know, on the playground and was like, come here. He didn't find his way in. He literally walked toward him and that killed the distance. And you can't kick like that backing up. Pico does the same thing. He just crowds that space. You watch him with Lerone. He is literally just walking and marching in. And I think that he's just going to big body Patricio. I think the youth in the big body of Pico are going to win. And I think, you know, we all want to talk about the chin, and that is a real thing. It is absolutely a real thing. But if he doesn't get just knocked out cold, clean, twitching on the ground, you know, which again, with a lot of the guys on this card, man, it's a toss up, but I think Pico wins it. I think he wins a decision or even a late TKO off of ground and pound.
Feezy, what do you think, man?
Yeah, same thing here. I think it's a shame that the UFC is the organization to make this fight. You know, they should have made this fight years ago when Pitbull was in his prime. That way you would have a more well-contested fight. I just think he's too old. Pico is going to be way too more physical against him. You know, I think he's going to rely on his grappling a lot. I'm sure he's heard it from a million people, especially after that Murphy fight, that you're too aggressive. You're doing perfect until you get too antsy. You're doing too much. With that being said, I know that power is the last thing to go, especially with a lot of these vets. But I still think that Pico is going to be able to implement his grappling. You know, if he feels like on the feet there's any type of moments or opportunities where Pitbull could thrive, he's just going to take him down. You know, he's the much more physical fighter. I think he's going to be a lot more conservative in this fight because he doesn't want to make those mistakes. This guy was talking that talk once he came into the UFC. I know in the back of his mind, he knows if he goes out there and gets slept again, especially from a former Bellator fighter, you're not even talking about UFC guy, former Bellator fighter, which everyone has said in the past, hey, this guy could put you out. If those other guys are putting you out, imagine what Pitbull is going to do to you. I'm sure that's in the back of his head. With that being said, I think we're going to see a more tame Pico out there. I think we're going to see a lot more grappling. I think he's just going to go out there and win some rounds. I don't think we're going to see him be as aggressive as he was against a guy like Murphy, which granted to him, until that killer knockout, he was doing amazing. And I think that's what frustrates everyone about Pico is you're doing great and you're dominating these guys until you get that chin cracked. And you can't really fault a guy, you know, can't really train a chin. I mean, I'm not a coach, I'm not a fighter. I don't think you could be doing any type of exercise to strengthen that chin from one of these strikes, especially strike like Murphy landed. So with that being said, I think we're going to see a way more conservative Pico. It might not be what the fans want to see, but it's what his career needs at this point. Needs to kind of regroup a little bit, kind of figure out if this style is going to be able to thrive in the UFC. Can you just go out there and try to bully your way through these elite level fighters? Because once you get to that top 10, it's a game of inches in some of these fights. You make a mistake, you're going to get cracked. And unfortunately, he doesn't have that chin, so he'll pay for that anytime his chin gets cracked. So I think Pico should win this. The odds are kind of crazy. I think he's like minus 320 something right now. The books are kind of crazy for that, in my opinion, but he should cover it.
So if the question is, can Pitbull crack? Ask Michael Chandler if he can crack, because he knocked Michael Chandler out in the first round, and that was up at 155 pounds. And, Pitbull's the guy that fought most of his career at 45s, even had, he tried to be a 3-division champ and tried to do 35s. Obviously, that was, too big of a weight cut for him. But still, 55s is not his proper weight class, and he knocked out Chandler in the first round. So there's questions about his power. It's definitely there. Coach, question for you, because Feezy brought up, about potentially training your chin. Are those neck exercises actually helpful, or is that a boxing myth?
No, it's a myth. I mean, but it's low-hanging fruit, so why not do it? There's not studies that say it's going to help you. There are some anecdotal things that say more mass around your neck will help absorb shots, but there's actually no scientific scholarly studies that prove it. And so until it's proven, we got to say they're like anecdotal at best, that maybe, look, there's nothing wrong with them. A big neck is, hey, you're lifting weights, try it. But the best way to train your chin is head movement and, being aware that people can punch you back. And that's why we see so many guys getting hit and knocked out in MMA is they're just all offense. They're literally just standing there. They land a good 1-2 and they just think it's punching from here on out. And no, it's 1-2 dip, 1-2 roll, 1-2 reset jab. There's off rhythm movements in between that keep you safe. And so many guys in our sport are like, F it. They throw caution to the wind and they just start swinging until who is it? Scott Smith throws that liver punch back. Was it Scott Smith or Pete Drago?
Yeah.
Do you remember that fight?
Pete Sell and Scott Smith? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Bro. Scott Smith won that.
Yeah. Where he hit him with that liver shot and Drago went in for the kill and just boom, down he went. But
hey, speaking of Drago, you have to check out Matt Brown versus Pete Sell. That was one of the fights that changed my view of violence. Matt showed he knocked him out 3 separate times in one round in that fight. You have to watch Matt Brown. There's probably only been 2 UFC events I haven't seen in my life. So I'm sure I've watched that, but it's not ringing a bell. So I'm gonna have to go back because I remember the good violent ones and, a lot of them. So I'm gonna have to go back because that one's not ringing a bell, but I love Matt Brown. That's a violent man. Yeah, it is. Before we move on to the next fight, I want to leave y'all with this. Patricio Pitbull had a great quote about Aaron Pico this week. He said, Pico has the kind of power that can take a giant's head off, but also the kind of chin that can get him dropped with a slap to the ear.
Yeah.
Yep. So Patricio said it best. Let's move on to the next fight because this is a good one. Because next up in the welterweight division, we got Kevin Holland. He's 28-15, taking on Randy Brown, who's 20-7. Currently, they got it. Randy Brown minus 130. The comeback on Kevin Holland is plus 110. So Randy 35, Kevin 33. Both men 6'3", but it's actually Kevin that's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage at 81 inches of reach. So anyone that listens to my show, Half the Battle, knows exactly what time of the year it is. And the time of the year it is the Fade Kevin Holland World Tour. That's just the bottom line. I've been fading Kevin Holland every single fight since the Wonder Boy fight, minus the Gunnar Nelson fight because I felt like he was too old, and then I also messed up and passed on the D-Rod fight because I felt like, well, he's not going to lose to a 40-year-old, right? And he's getting knocked all over
my beer
by a 40-year-old. Hey, if anyone knows what's happening to D-Rod, let us know because I've heard some rumors. I don't want to say something that's not true, but we wish D-Rod the absolute best. But look, all that being said, here's what I got to say, guys. I can break down, all kinds of stuff about how these guys match up, but you guys have seen these guys fight. Here's all I'm going to say. If you bet against Kevin Holland in his next 10 fights, you will be profitable. You will be on the right side of the coin. And that's just the bottom line. I got Randy Brown here. I don't know how he's going to do it. And even if Randy Brown loses, we're fading Kevin Holland his very next fight too. Kevin Holland doesn't give a shit. Kevin Holland's showing up for a paycheck. At least Randy Brown cares a little bit more. Now, granted, that last fight against Bonfim, I picked Bonfim, but even I was surprised how easily Bonfim won that fight. I thought that Randy was going to put up a little bit more of a fight, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that Randy Brown chokes in big fights. If you put Randy Brown in a main event or like a co-main event against Jack Della Maddalena, he kind of chokes in those fights. But this is on the prelims, no pressure on you. Just come out here, do your thing, get back on track, back is up against the wall. I think he's going to come out here. I think he's got every tool at his disposal to beat Holland in every area of the fight. Of course, he could get hurt because Holland is a dangerous fighter. But the bottom line is this is the Fade Kevin Holland World Tour, and it's touchdown in Miami, Florida. And I'm looking forward to cashing this minus 130 on Randy Brown, Coach.
I love it. The Fade Kevin Holland Tour. Well, where do I buy my ticket? Because I'm jumping on that bus. I actually really like Kevin Holland, and he's a fun guy. He's the guy that you want to watch fight. He's entertaining. He said that I just don't think he gives a crap about winning or losing. He's just in there fighting. I don't even know if he wants to win. I don't care if I don't know if he cares about the win bonus. What is going on in that man's head? Randy Brown's good. He's got a good jab. He does a lot of stuff. He's very stylistic. He's heavy on that lead leg, so we see him get kicked a lot. He leans forward a lot, and so which is good against shorter opponents because he can pull and float that range a little bit. I don't know that I think that Randy Brown chokes in big fights. I think he ran into Jack Della Maddalena, and I think Jack did that to pretty much everybody until Makhachev. And then with Bonfim.
But hold on. To like not even put up any kind of a fight, just the first exchange you go down and get choked out by an Australian striker.
So, yeah, I think I'm not trying to be a fortune teller over here, but I remember calling that. I'm like, Jack is going to get inside and just rip his body and send him down. I just
good call.
Stylistically, I was like, and I liked Randy Brown at the time too, but Jack. So I got to say, I'm a Jack nut hugger. I swing from that guy's balls, man. I am such a big fan of his. When he lost to Makhachev the way that he lost, it took my soul. That, I stopped watching MMA that day. Jack died, MMA died with me. But Randy does all the right stuff. I think he does. I think he's really good. And then with the Bonfim thing, where I think what really started messing him up with that was the range, where I think he's so used to fighting shorter opponents. And Bonfim, and if you see it a lot where he pulls his head back and tries to just reach, kind of lean out of reach. And he would do that, but Bonfim would catch him at the end of his punch and then step in with one or two more punches and land again. And I think they're just levels above him. I think Randy Brown is a guy that will always float between what is he ranked right now? Do you know off the top of your head? But I would say between
he ain't ranked 20, I'd say.
Yeah,
18, 20.
Somewhere around there. I think if he goes on a streak, he might reach 13, 14, 15, and then lose a couple fights and be ranked 25. And I think he's a really good gatekeeper. Kevin Holland, he has good power. He has good jiu-jitsu also. It's kind of weird. And he has good instincts. The dude is just a knucklehead, and you can't bet on retardation to win when somebody else is trying to, win at an analytical level.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Feezy, where you stand on this?
Man, I am right there with you on that fake Kevin Holland tour, man, because that guy just does not respect coin whatsoever. And I think that's what it comes down to. Like, I think he's there 70% of the time to collect that check and to be our modern Cowboy Cerrone. But the thing about that is Cowboy went out there every single fight confident that he's going to take this guy's fucking head off. That's the difference, you know? Kevin Holland, on the other hand, gives up a lot of these positions, and instead of making the effort to get out of there, or if he knows he's getting picked apart at a certain spot, he kind of just takes it and plays this cool guy act like, fuck it, like, it is what it is. And it's like, you can't do that, especially at this level in the UFC. I think what's going to happen here is going to be pretty obvious. You know, Randy Brown has a great jab. I think we're going to see him get jabbed up for a majority of the fight. You know, Brown has a great fighting IQ when he's not fighting elite level fighters, in my opinion. He's very technical striker. He's very rangy. And most importantly, he's patient. He's not going to overexpose himself. He's not going to go out there and try to get into this brawl with Kevin, because regardless of anything else, you know, Kevin still has that power. You know, he could still crack you if you give him an opening. I think the only way Kevin Holland has a chance to win this fight is if he goes out there and tries to grapple, tries to use his jiu-jitsu. But he's going to go out there and try to be the fan favorite and just stand with Brown. I don't see much success. And personally, I just don't think he cares at this point. He's going to go out there, do what he always does, and that's put up a fight as far as it goes. And when things aren't going his way, he's going to give the old, oh, fuck it. I already came what I came for. And I have just a personal vendetta against Holland, because when I want to go see that Wonder Boy fight live, and I remember the night before, I was telling everyone, all my buddies, like, hey, you know, this guy Kevin Holland, you know, he's gonna choke this guy out. You know, I believe that was his first main event, right?
Yeah, but either way, that mistake or that decision he made, oh my god.
Yeah. Well, I knew I was cooked because the night before the fight, there was a pop-up meet and greet with like Terrence McKinney and Money Moicano. And this was around like 11, 12 o'clock. Guess who shows up?
Yep. Yeah.
Kevin Holland shows up with fucking Jamal Hill and a bunch of other goons. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, dude, I have you in like 3 parlays and like a shitload of money straight on you. What are you doing here? And instead of being in bed, resting, this guy was actually pressing Captain Eric at the bar, confronting him about stuff that he had said in a previous interview. And I'm just like, dude, where's your head at here? Like, do you even care that you have your first main event against an aging vet, which you could potentially show out and finish? But we saw what happened there. He got him to the ground. What did he do? Get up. Let's scrap. Like, I'm not gonna give a fighter my coin that doesn't respect it whatsoever. So with that being said, I'm with you 100%. The next 10 fights, fade Central. Even at the pick-em, I feel like the odds are about right. You know, I could see a fight where Holland is a successful one here, but just from what I know and from previous experiences and what I know Randy Brown could bring to the table against a fighter that's not elite caliber, I think he has a really good shot at winning this fight.
Like, when you make a gentleman's agreement in a UFC fight, like, are you fucking dumb? Like, there's like, you literally have a 6-figure win bonus waiting for you. Hey, Wonder Boy's on the ground. This guy's a blue belt. You're a black belt. Like, go ahead, land a little ground and pound pass, set up your signature darts, go home with a couple extra checks. Now, I'm going to let this guy get back up and keep whooping my ass. Like, yeah, coach, I'm baffled.
Yeah, the funny thing about Holland is he actually has a lot of good skills. Like, he's actually I mean, we've seen him knock Jacare out from the bottom. We saw him Dars Vicente Luque. We've seen him, armbar Michael Olasheshak. Like, the guy actually has skills. He just doesn't seem to care. He just doesn't have a fight IQ about it. And the frustrating thing about this is he could go out there and beat Randy Brown's ass and look amazing. And like you said, you still fade him the next fight because you don't know if he's going to show up then. And that's the frustrating thing about him. I actually think if he got on some Adderall and a psychologist like 5 years ago and took this seriously, the guy could have been a real contender. It just doesn't seem like he's ever taken it too seriously.
Yeah, no questions asked. The Fade Kevin Holland World Tour rolls on, and it touches down in Miami Saturday night. Let's get it, gentlemen. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Mateusz Gamrot. He's 25-4, taking on Esteban Ribovics, who's 15-2. Currently, they got it Gamrot -170, Ribovics +145. So Gamrot, 6 years older at 35, both men 5'10", and it's Gamrot that has a 1.5 inch reach at 70.5 inches of reach. So interesting fight. And I've kind of been waiting for my time to fade Mateusz Gamrot. No disrespect to him. I think he brings something incredible to the table and very unique too. You know, that low single style for MMA. You don't see that very often. Coach, the last time I saw that was Randy Couture versus James Toney, you know, but to actually do it at a high level, like, hey, but do you guys want to know what the clear sign of a decline is? Let me tell you what the clear sign of a decline is. The clear sign of a decline is when you can beat Arman Tsarukyan, and then a couple of years later, you can't even beat Dan Hooker. That's all I got to say. I think that Esteban Ribovics, in that debut, when he got taken down 11 times back in 2023, he still hurt the opponent multiple times. Getting taken down 11 times also means you probably got back up about 10 or 11 times. I think he's had the adequate amount of time to patch up that area of his game. He doesn't train in Argentina. He trains in Florida. And I think he's going to come out here and put the damage on Mateusz Gamrot. I think he's going to be able to get back up from the takedowns and either be the first man in history to knock out Gamrot or win a damage-based decision. I think he's catching Gamrot at a great time. And Coach, I took him here at dog money.
I like that. And one thing you brought up his single leg, and every podcast I do, I talk that Gamrot's fighting it. I talk about his single leg because it's gorgeous. And actually, not only is his single leg gorgeous, but he's over ATT. And if you watch most of the guys at ATT, they actually wrestle the way that Gamrot wrestles. And he'll shoot a double or even a high crotch, and then he turns it into that single, and he hugs the knee, hugs the ankle, and he pulls it back, goes backside double, or he'll climb up. And you don't see that. You see most guys trying to lift the leg and then treetop or kick it out, or you see him running the double. Grant Dawson did that to my guy Mark Madsen, shooting on him. Watch the takedowns he was hitting on Madsen, who's an Olympic silver medalist, but it's in Greco. He'd shoot, pull that leg the exact same way Gamrot does it. Gamrot has elevated everybody's wrestling over there. It's amazing. But that said, like, I think you're right. Now, here's the thing, and this is a tricky one. Look, a year ago, Gamrot wins this fight hands down. It's like 11 months ago, he wins it hands down. 10 months, most likely. 9 months, he hasn't fallen off the cliff yet. We're waiting for him to fall off the cliff. And so we're kind of like, again, a couple of years ago, even the Esteban Ribovics now versus Gamrot a year or two ago, I don't think has a chance because Gamrot is such a good wrestler, such a good grappler. What we're banking on here with this fight, what I am anyway, is this is finally going to be the one where he steps off the ledge. And we've seen him get clipped against Turner. We've seen him get clipped against Hooker. We saw him get clipped against Dariush.
RDA.
So RDA, the chin wants to go, but it's held up so far. He's fallen and he's able to just jump on that leg and continue it going. It's a risky play because Gamrot is the better fighter, but he's slowed down significantly in terms of his cardio. He's gotten slower. He was always like, man, that cardio in the Tsarukyan fight. That's why he won that. I mean, Tsarukyan won round 1 and 2, and then Gamrot's cardio started pushing through. And that's really how he won, was he was just able to sustain it longer. He's slowing down. He's doing less, and that chin is starting to go. And I'm with you, especially because Ribovics is a cardio machine. He fought by a guy, Kamwela Kirk, and he just would not stop coming. he throws 4, 5, 6 punch combinations. He just goes. The issue with him is he kind of stands tall. He stands tall and he walks in and his chin is up a little bit. Gamrot's striking has gotten better over the years. He has a good jab. I'm not going to say he's going to hurt Ribovics. I don't think a car accident could hurt Ribovics, but he's going to throw that jab and get him leaning back even further. And then that opens up that single leg. So that worries me. It worries me is his stance a little bit. But like you said, he gets back up. He will do the right stuff. He's got 3 chances. I don't think Gamrot finishes this fight. And so he starts 3 times on his feet. It's a very risky play because Gamrot could still, I mean, look at what Gamrot did to Ludovit. Look what we're like, oh, Ludovit's takedown defense has gotten so good. Look what Ludovit's been wrestling. And then he just sunned Ludovit, like, sit your asses down. You guys, peanut gallery, shut up. I'm still not there yet. I think Ludovit was worried about the takedown. I don't think Ribovics is going to give a shit about the takedown. And I think his pressure and chaos are eventually going to find it. But again, I'm just hoping that Mateusz steps off that cliff, and when he gets hit, he can't recover like he always has in the past.
Feezy, talk to me, man. What you think?
Yeah, similar mindset. I think what makes Gamrot great is going to be also the thing that's going to show his opponents how to beat him. You know, you guys talk about his single leg and how great he is in those entries, but it's kind of the same thing watching every fight. You know he's going to go for that single leg. You know he's going to pressure you. You know he's going to go for that takedown. You know, doesn't really do much on the feet. Doesn't really give you a lot of these feints. He just relies on that heavy grappling style. And eventually people are picking up on that. You know, this evolution of MMA, especially coming from these young guys that have coaches and have people in the industry that know how to combat these type of things, is going to become more relevant in the game. And with that being said, I think Ribovics is going to be able to get taken down probably 6 times, but eventually he's going to keep getting up. And when he gets up, he's going to be able to hurt Gamrot. And physically, every time Gamrot gets cracked, you see it more and more in these recent fights. Before, he used to kind of have this poker face where it's like, okay, you cracked me. I'm still coming after you. I'm going after you. You saw it in the Hooker fight. When things didn't start going his way, you kind of saw this hesitancy to go for that shot. You know, like, is the knee going to be right there? Is he going to be able to crack me on the way to the entry? And you can't have those second thoughts against a violent guy like Ribovics, because he's going to go out there with so much confidence to be able to put your lights out that he's not going to care about being too technical. He's just going to go out there, hopefully put a knee down the middle and crack him. But I just don't see Gamrot sustaining that style. I think he's been one-dimensional for far too long. It's going to catch up to him eventually, especially now with the way judges have been looking at fights. I think they want to see more damage versus just control time, you know? But then again, we don't know what the hell judges are looking at, especially recently. So I think he's going to be able to get some takedowns here and there early, but when he gets up, he's going to pay for it. You know, we saw it last week as well. You know, when his opponent wasn't able to get those takedowns, he made him pay. So I think we're going to see something similar here. I don't know if he finishes Gamrot, but I think we're going to see a pretty even fight with a split decision going to Ribovics, just because the crowd is going to be behind them. It's going to be in Miami. There's a lot of Latinos in there. They're going to be loud every time he hits them, every time he lands a shot. That crowd is going to go wild. So I think that's going to sway the judges. I think we're going to see a fight similar to what we saw against Dan Hooker, where you might see him get a lot of takedowns, but damage is going to be the key here. And I'm going to go with Ribovics as a dog.
Now, next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Tatiana Suarez. She's 11-1, taking on Loopy Godinez, who's 14-5. Currently, they got it Tatiana -155. The comeback on Loopy is +135. Tatiana 35, Loopy 32. Tatiana 3 inches taller at 5'5", has a 5-inch reach advantage at 66 inches of reach. Feezy, it's an interesting matchup because obviously Tatiana, like we talked about earlier in 2018, I mean, when she beat Alexa and Carla, a lot of people thought that she was going to go on to become a world champion. Obviously injuries and layoffs and all kinds of things. She hasn't looked quite the same. Godinez has a little bit of a wrestling background, but from time to time, Loopy will make some kind of Loopy in-fight decision. So what do you think about this matchup?
I like this matchup for both of them, actually. I think if Tatiana goes out there and implements her game plan and relies on a lot of her grappling, she should have success, at least for the first 2 rounds. It might start getting a little sketchy in the 3rd round, but that all depends on whether or not she's healthy. You know, those injuries, you really take a toll on a fighter's body. We don't know if this is the same Tatiana that fought in the past. We don't know how she's going to look like moving forward. And one thing that I really dislike about her, and granted it was against Zhang, when things aren't going her way, I don't think she adjusts well. I think she knows what she's good at and just tries to drill that for all 3 rounds. And if you're going against a fighter like Godinez, which I saw in previous interviews, they say she's bringing on a lot of heavy wrestlers into her camp. You know, she has a great camp. Both of her teammates just came out with great performances. So that confidence in that room is very high. She's going to go out there knowing she prepared for this fight, knowing she could grapple with her. And on the feet, she's going to take over if it gets that. It's just a matter of when Tatiana takes her down, can she hold her down? And personally, I think for at least 2 rounds, she is going to be able to take her down and hold her down. 3rd round might get a little sketchy, but in my opinion, she should win this fight.
Coach, tell me what you think about this fight, and then also tell me who's got worse striking, Tatiana or Patchy Mix?
Oh my gosh, it's their child. Like like hopefully that child never tries to walk into a boxing gym, because it's going to end up. Actually, the child is probably like the savant of striking, but can't wrestle to save its life.
Right. I'd pick the child and knock them both out. But anyways, keep going.
Yes, I don't think you're wrong there. I think Tatiana is just going to big body Godinez. I think I'm pretty critical of Tatiana in her overall MMA game, because I think her striking is god awful. Her jiu-jitsu is not great, but she does have good top control grappling and good back control, just like Patchy does. And I think that even later in the rounds, round 2, round 3, even if she can't get the takedown, I think she can force the fight to the cage, clinch, drape over her a bit. I think Loopy is just going to be a little bit too small here. She has decent power, but it's not like scary powers. I mean, she's a woman. The women's divisions, look, we see knockouts every once in a while, but there's no real heavy hitters. Not none, but there's few. I think Tatiana's going to run away with this and just drape over her. She's going to be a Patchy Mix blanket all over Loopy.
Pre-UFC Patchy Mix, you mean?
Oh, geez, yeah. He fell off pretty hard. He fell off hard.
Listen, I'm going to come in on the opposite side of both of y'all on this one. I mean, I'm not that confident, because Loopy, like we talked about many times, she'll have some winnable fights and then just make horrendous in-fight decision-making. Like
She's the Kevin Holland of the women's division.
In that Virna Jandiroba fight, there were times where it seemed like, hey, you get up here instead of attacking leg entanglements against fucking Virna Jandiroba, like, things like that. But here's the thing, though. She's been in there with real grapplers, the champ Mackenzie Dern, with Virna, and even though she lost both those fights, they were competitive, close fights. And the thing I want to say is that I don't have to lay -175 on Loopy here like you would have to in some of these other fights where she's dropped the ball. Here, she's the underdog. And I frankly think that she's catching Tatiana at a great time. Tatiana has simply not looked the same. there's no shame in losing to Zhang Wei Li, but it wasn't even remotely competitive. And like you compare, USA wrestling to China wrestling, and you can't take her down. And a year prior, Rose Namajunas was taking her down like it's no one's business. So to me, that's a clear sign of a Suarez decline. Then you see the Lemos fight, and like, you know what Tatiana would have done to Lemos a couple of years ago? And to, for it to even be in question who won that fight, clear sign of a decline. So yeah, I think that there's a chance that Loopy makes it super frustrating and I lose a split, or I lose, that 29-28 that Feezy's talking about, where we lose the first 2 rounds, then we come on strong in that third, and we wonder, damn, if you could have just done it a little bit sooner, we'd cash this underdog bet. But I'm still going to go with the underdog. I'm going to go Loopy, sprawl and brawl, keep this fight standing. She's got the wrestling to keep this standing. She's got better hands than Tatiana. On paper, it sounds like it could go my way. We'll see how it actually plays out in practice, but I'm going to go Loopy to get this upset, gentlemen.
All right.
Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Marquel Mederos. He's 11-1, taking on Chris Padilla, who's 17-6. Currently, they got it. Chris, -180. The comeback on Marquel is +155. So Chris is 30. I thought he was like 35, 36, but he's only 30. Marquel is 29. Marquel an inch taller at 5'10", but it's Chris that's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage in this spot. So I need y'all to go first, because I cannot call a Chris Padilla fight to save my life. I've literally been wrong on all this guy's fights. He's been the underdog every single time. Now he's the favorite. Now I'm going to pick him. Now, of course, he's finally going to lose. So Feezy, talk to me, man. What you think?
No, I'm with you too, man. I've been on the wrong side of a couple of Chris Padilla fights, but I think it's just one of those guys that just learn the most while they're on their job. Watching his tape early on, especially pre-UFC, I saw a lot of holes in his game, but lately he's just been looking like a fucking rock star, man. What I love about him is he's not afraid to get in there, get in the nitty-gritty, land those elbows, which I personally fucking love when these fighters start implementing those elbows, because I feel like that's what's going to cause the most damage. And I think in this fight, what's going to be giving him the upper hand is the fighting experience and the fact that he's willing to get in there and make it a dirty fight. When I see Marquel Mederos, seems like a very clean-cut fighter, very technical, loves to fight in the range, snappy, make it his fight. But when things start to get a little crazy in there, he starts having those moments where you kind of see that hesitancy of like, fuck, like shit's not going my way. We saw it. I think he won a split decision against Austin. And it's like, that's not one of those guys that you go to a split decision with early, especially early on. I felt like he should have really showed out that fight. Who knows if it was one of those fights where he just had the jitters before it. But this fight isn't gonna be one of those fights where he's just gonna be in range and be able to pick him apart. Chris Padilla brings it every single fight. And with that being said, I think Chris Padilla is gonna be able to edge out the win again, potentially get a finish, because I don't think Mederos is ready for a war. And Chris Padilla brings a war each time.
Interesting. Coach, talk to me, because I mean, Chris, defensively sound, and like, dude, like I said, I thought he was 35, 36. He's only 30. In his interviews, he calls himself a journeyman, so I thought he was a journeyman. But Mederos has kind of that new school point fighting style. I don't think he's bad at all. I think he's one of these guys that he flies under the radar. He can win these split decisions. What do you think about this fight and the odds?
I think the odds are nuts. I'm on Mederos here, hugely. And I think the other thing about Padilla, I don't think he's a guy to bring it or press or anything. I think he actually sits back with that high guard and lets people come to him. Rong Zhu was just throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him, and Padilla wasn't really doing much. And then he timed a beautifully timed elbow as Rong Zhu was overextended and going in. He beat Jai Herbert in his last fight, where the two of them decided to stare at each other for 3 rounds. So that fight wasn't even a fight. And he's beating James Yontop and Rong Zhu. The Bonfim one was legit. That was a phenomenal performance.
And that was the best that he's looked as well.
By far. Stylistically, though, he's fighting Mederos, and Mederos was at Factory X for years. Factory X is switch stance, touch, lead hand, calf kick, switch stance, touch, in and out. So he has really good footwork, really good in and out distance. Now he's over at the MMA lab. Those guys are just as tough as can be. His cage wrestling is going to be better. Wrestling as a whole, his toughness as a whole. And you've never seen somebody from the lab gas out. Must be in the water. So I think stylistically with Padilla, he sits back so much and lets the fight come to him. And when the fight doesn't come to him, like Jai Herbert, he doesn't really change or mix it up or go do anything or start shooting or go swinging or anything. He's just okay with how it plays out. And you get a guy like Jai Herbert, that dude's chin is as bad as everyone else we've seen on this card. So he can't take a shot. He can't engage. And he's, man, for as amazing of a striker as he is, we've seen this a little bit out of Jai. Mederos is just going to touch. He's going to out volume. His takedown defense is athletically good. And what I mean by that is he's not an amazing wrestler, but he's tall and athletic and moves and does the right stuff just to create enough space to get back up. I think it's a volume thing here. I think, look, if there's a finish, give me Padilla all day long. If you have a sorcerer's ball and you could say, all right, this fight does not go the distance, like, all right, I'm slamming Padilla. Without that, I mean, I would assume this fight does go the distance. I think Mederos is tough. I think he's durable. I think he's got a good chin. I think he's fast, young, athletic. But he has the volume. He has that stance switching. He has the volume. And Padilla will give him that volume because Padilla coasts on the cage. And I think he's going to try to time those big shots. But if he can't time that big step in elbow or that big knee or something, give me Mederos all day.
Yeah, from a betting perspective, I think it's dog or pass, pure pick, just because I feel bad about how I've regarded Padilla. I'm gonna pick him to win a controversial split decision. But from a betting perspective, I mean,
no, you got to reverse that. You got to reverse it right now, and let me tell you why. When you're wrong with somebody like 4 or 5 times in a row, you just got to double it down. You just got to keep riding with them until it's right. I did that with who's the South African?
Dricus.
Oh my gosh, Dricus. I've said he's going to lose every fight since he was like 1-0, and he won. Like, he just keeps winning and winning and winning. And I'm like, you just got to keep doubling down on it. Just double down.
Yeah, at the betting window, I might anyways, just because of the price. Like for like the market overcorrection of him being an underdog every single time. Now he's minus 180 versus a guy who's got those weasel abilities, who is able to come out here, win those close split decisions. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, close fight for sure. Now, gentlemen, this next one is very interesting, especially considering it's the second fight of the night, because it speaks to how much both these guys have kind of fallen off, because this would have been a fight night main event a few years ago. Because next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Kelvin Gastelum, he's 20-10, taking on Vicente Luque, who's 23-12-1. Currently, they got it Kelvin minus 230. The comeback on Vicente is plus 195. Both men 34. Kelvin 5'9", Vicente 5'11", and Vicente has quite a bit of a reach advantage here, and he's got a 76-inch reach in this spot. So, man, Vicente Luque used to be the kind of guy that you could take a baseball bat to his face and he'd smile at you. If you watch that fight he had against Brian Barberena, where they're just landing knockout blow after knockout blow on each other, and fight of the year contender, and he's had so many of those. And we can talk about the Jeff Neal fight, but it wasn't like it just happened overnight. When you have the fights that he had, like I said, the Brian Barberena fight, that second Nico Price fight, et cetera, eventually the bottom's going to fall out from right under you. And that's exactly what's been happening. And now it's a thing where the confidence is gone too, because skills wise, I mean, the calf kicks of Vicente, that front choke series, his left hook, I mean, besides like Paul Daly and like Poatan, well, let's just talk welterweight. Besides Paul Daly, I'd say Vicente Luque might have the best left hook in the history of the welterweight division. And that he knocked out Thiago Marreta Santos with a left hook on his regional scene, by the way. So this dates back to pre-UFC. But where he's at now, confidence completely gone, and it's wild. And I mean, I get why. Brain bleed, like, come on, man. That's the biggest red flag you can get. And with Gastelum, it's different issues. It's motivational things, because Gastelum's ultra talented. for you to be in the wrong weight class and be as competitive as he is with the guys like, I was in attendance because he fought Israel Adesanya in Atlanta, Georgia, in my hometown. Unbelievable fight. I mean, great fight. And like the fact that you're, one round, it was 2-2 going into round 5, you're one round away from winning a belt, dude. Like the fact that a dude that's in the wrong weight class that eats tacos on fight week can fight that competitively with the best guys on planet Earth is phenomenal. The only thing is that sometimes I overestimate Kelvin and he'll let me down. The Neil Magny fight, I thought he was going to run through Neil Magny. I thought he was going to put a beat down on Jack Hermanson. And from time to time, he'll really let me down. But that being said, one thing that hasn't diminished is his durability. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, he's been rocked in fights and stuff, but like he can still eat. Did you see those shots he was eating against D-Rod? Like, dude, he can still eat a big shot. That's going to be the difference here. I mean, when Vicente Luque lands his best shot, Kelvin's going to be right in his face. When Kelvin lands his best shot, Vicente is going to pull guard and unfortunately look for the door. It's so sad what's happened. I think Luque should have retired, but then again, when you're getting 6 figures to show, and where else are you going to make 6 figures in 15 minutes or less? So I get why he's coming back. And also because of how exciting Luque has been in the past is why they haven't cut him yet, is why they keep giving him opportunities. But what's currently happening to both guys is also why they're the second fight of the night and not opening the main card. So, Coach, I don't know what you can reveal because I know you have a history with Gastelum, but were you involved in this camp? What can you tell us? Like, what do you think about my assessment? Talk to me.
No, I wasn't involved in this camp. Like I retired after Henry's fight, and then Kelvin is now up. I've talked to Kelvin quite a bit, over the last few weeks and during the camp and stuff while he's there. But I've trained Kelvin for the last 4 or 5 fights. I don't remember, and he's, man, I love that guy. I've never seen him in a bad mood. Most positive human I've ever seen in my life. I don't really want to, talk about this really much at all. I never talk about fighters that I have trained extensively. The only thing I will say is this: everybody expects this to be a stand-up war, and like I wouldn't be shocked to see Vicente try to do what he did to RDA. And just turn it into a straight wrestling match like he did on the cage. So
if he does, okay, but let's say he does that. What kind of success do you see him having in that scenario?
Oh, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about it in really any situation. I'm just curious, just as in terms of what everybody expects versus what ends up happening. I'm just curious to see how it goes. But I love KG. I hope he wins. And I hope he does all the right stuff. Sorry, my earbud is dying over here.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I agree that if people are expecting a war, they're wrong because Vicente can't be in a war anymore. That's the bottom line. So if someone's going to eat shots, it's going to be Vicente and then pulling guard. There's no way this is going to be a war. But could it be a grapple fest? Interesting point. What do you think, Feezy? Talk to me.
Yeah, I think this is if you made this fight a couple years ago, I'd be all over Luque. But I just don't think he has much left in the gas tank. He's been finished pretty brutally as of late. And I think Gastelum, regardless of whether people think he's on a decline or anything, he's still putting up fights against some top contenders. I mean, Pfeiffer threw everything but the kitchen sink at him in that fight, and he was still there standing tall against them. So I think just off of what's left in the gas tank, I have Gastelum. I think he also has more avenues to potentially win this fight. On the feet, they pretty much are even as far as strikes thrown. I just think Gastelum's going to have that power. And I don't know if Luque could eat some of these shots that he used to be able to. And with that being said, I think Gastelum's going to be able to have the harder hits. He's going to have the bigger moments. Do I think I see a finish? No, I don't really see Gastelum finishing him here. I see him having the bigger moments. I see him winning most minutes in the round, seeing it go to decision. I'm not that excited about this fight, to be honest. I think it's just one of those fights that, because of their names, it's added into the card. And it just comes down to what these guys have left in the gas tank. And with that reason, I'm going Kelvin Gastelum. I don't think Luque has his heart in the game anymore. I think he gets a pretty hefty paycheck just because he's a veteran, and it's hard to say no to that paycheck.
Yeah, I got Kelvin as well.
One last thing here is this fight's at 185 and not 170. So Luke, I think that benefits Kelvin significantly here.
Now, last but not least, in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between the Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radke, he's 11-5, taking on Francisco Prado, who's 12-4. Currently, they got it Charles -170, Prado +145. Significant age gap. 12 years older is Charles Radke. 1 inch taller, allegedly, is Prado, but I think Prado's more like 5'8", honestly. Radke has a 3-inch reach advantage at 72 inches of reach. Feezy, it's interesting because I think that Prado, we shouldn't give up on him yet because he's only 23 years old. He's just a kid. And when you think about some of these matchups he's had, dude, when you've had less than 5 UFC fights and you're taking on Jake Matthews, who's literally been in the UFC since he was 19 years old, that experience gap is just something that's really tough to overcome. And then I really felt like Prado got the short end of the stick on that decision against Veretetnikov. I think the UFC thought so too. That's why they're giving him another opportunity. With Radke, we know he's a good hammer, not the best nail, but I'd say the best attribute of his game is his punching power. The dude can crack. That's the bottom line. So this is a really interesting fight. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think like you mentioned earlier, he's 23, and he's, like I mentioned earlier, one of the fighters, he's one of these guys that are gonna have to learn at the job. He's gonna have to know what his weaknesses are, and with all these fights against guys like Jake Matthews, against guys like Nikolai, who lost that split decision, he gets to go back and see, what did I do wrong here? And I believe he's training that American Top Team now. That's potentially one of the best training centers to be at when you're trying to develop yourself into a better fighter. And this opponent, honestly, I thought the odds would be a lot closer. I know he's moving up a weight class, but Radke's going to go out there and bang with him. I personally like these small, stocky guys in one of those slugfests because I feel like they just hold this type of power where these longer guys aren't expecting them to reach and crack them. But when they do, they land with some serious power. So I think everything that Radke is going to go out there and do, we've seen him do before. I don't think he's going to present anything new in this fight. It's going to be a brawl. And I think Prado's going to take advantage of that. He's going to be able to get inside that pocket and potentially crack that chin. So at those odds, I'm going to take Prado. I think the UFC, like you said, probably also thought that he won that split decision. I thought he had it, but we're not the judges. So this fight, he's able to right his wrong and hopefully comes out with a big win.
Coach?
Man, I like Chuck Buffalo here. I need Chuck Buffalo and Josh Hokit to win just so I can hear their post-fight interviews. That's what I need in my life. But I think so. Prado's moving up a weight. He's a small 55er, and this is a fight at 170. Chuck's a good full-size 170 pounder. And he's smart too. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. He knows, you see him in short notice against Mike Mathetha down in, what is that, Australia or New Zealand, wherever that card was. And he knew to clinch. He knew to pull the grappling out of him. He's a ape caveman of a human, but he's a smart fighter and he does the right stuff. I don't think he's an overly talented striker. I think it's a little awkward in terms of his technical abilities, but I think he's comfortable in there, and I think he knows what he's doing, and he does have some good punching power, but he can also wrestle as well. Prado, really short arms. Prado should have followed Esteban Ribovics to Kill Cliff because they're both Argentinian. He should have followed him because they both came up right around the same time.
Is he not ATT?
What's that?
Is he not ATT?
Now
Prado?
he is, but he spent a lot of time. Sorry, I took my earphones out, so I have my speaker low, so it's not like any echo or anything. No, I think that was pretty recently that he went to ATT. He was at Goat Shed for a while, and he was at these smaller places, and he wasn't putting the time in. And if he has been at ATT for this whole time, which I don't believe he has, what makes you think he's going to be any better now? I think the move to ATT is a good move. But if he was over there, they didn't do anything good with him. I don't believe at this point because, I mean, he kind of brawls the pocket, and the second you're comfortable swinging with him and throwing with him, he's the one engaging in the grappling, and he's the one kind of initiating, but he doesn't have great wrestling. He has good timing where he'll shoot and he'll get a takedown and then people just pop right back up. I don't think he's ever controlled anybody on the ground for more than a second or two. He's not, I mean, he has that swinging armbar that he throws from the bottom, but he's not a submission machine. He's beating up Argentinian cab drivers before he got to the UFC. I don't know that he's really beating anybody decent, and I just haven't seen him show any level of fight IQ or overly amazing technical abilities that makes me think that he's going to beat a very decent Chuck Buffalo. I don't think Chuck Buffalo is amazing. I think Radke is very decent. I think he's tough. I think he has good cardio. I think he does most of the right things, but he's not overly athletic. You know, he's fighting guys like Carlos Prates. Like what do you do against that? But I like Radke a lot here. And I think it's just going to be domination.
Interesting. Domination. Wow. You know, honestly, I think it's a dog or pass situation as well. It's going to be really interesting now to see how it plays out, because to me, Chuck Buffalo, he'll crush the cans. I say that, but he didn't crush Blood Diamond, who's a can. And I just think that Prado, I agree that, you know, I'd like to see a little bit more, but the kid's only 23 years old. You come to the UFC at 21. Like you said, he's only been fighting these cab drivers in Argentina. And now you're fighting fucking Jake Matthews in Australia. Yep. Like, you know, like, hey, that's paying dues. Now I think that this is a more reasonable matchup in the sense that Chuck Buffalo is a finished product, but more importantly than that, I don't think that Chuck Buffalo is going to grind out Prado, where I think, you know, Prado probably has his biggest weakness. I think he's going to bang with him. And of course, Buffalo hits very hard. We know this, but have you seen this dude, Prado's chin? He's got that Drew Dober, Ethan Ewing chin. You know what I'm saying? So I can see him just going in here and making a close ass fight. And in a scenario like that, I'm going to take the underdog, but I'm very curious how it plays out, because you're not just picking Radke, you're confident that he dominates. So now I'm really interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like knocking him out, beating him up, submitting him. I think it's just going to be clear, because the one thing that Prado does is he is durable. He won't die. But I think it's just going to be clear 10-9 rounds for Radke. Got
you. So we're at the 2-hour mark. Before we get out of here, Coach, would you be down to do a 5-minute Q&A with the fans real quick?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, so let's see what we got here. So our first question, Dick's Insider. He's been waiting to ask you this. Coach Santino, we're curious what you've heard about D-Rod's whereabouts. We know nothing is official, but we're very curious about the rumors.
I don't know what the rumors are right now. What are the rumors right now? Because I actually do know a little. So
the rumors are that he's in prison in Mexico.
Mexico, yeah. So he has a storied past. I mean, you don't get tattoos on your face without a bit of a checkered past. I mean, that's just the way these things work out. But he, you know, I have some mutual friends, because they were actually going to bring him for his last camp or his fight camp before. He was going to come out to fight ready because he was trying to get away from all of the trouble out in California. That was the last I heard of him. He was going to come out. Then he was in like Casa Grande for a little while, which is a town maybe an hour south of Phoenix. And that's it. So I can't give you any more than that.
All right, let's see what else we got here. So Alec wanted to know, Coach, what are your thoughts on Pereira versus Gane?
I hadn't really thought about that yet. I want to think I like Gane here, just size and durability. And I think he is very fast in that karate style. I think will do him well. Just because Pereira is getting a little slower and a little older, and we've seen him hit a little bit. I love Pereira. I think moving up to heavyweight, I think he's fighting a really fast heavyweight in Gane and a very athletic heavyweight in Gane. And I think if you were fighting somebody a little slower or clunkier, he'd probably fare better. But fun fight. I really can't wait for it.
Feezy, you got to pick on Gane and Poatan? Oh, my bad. I muted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Gane might just be too quick for Poatan. I just don't know if it's gonna be like he looks a little slow at times at light heavyweight, and I don't think a move up in the division is going to necessarily help his speed. And you're going against Gon, who's fucking quick as hell. You know, he was making Aspinall look like he didn't know what was going on in there with that jab. So if he was able to do that to Aspinall, which in my opinion is a pretty quick fighter himself, you know, what's he going to be able to do to Pereira? But the thing about Pereira is he's got that one-shot kill, you know, where Gon could have the perfect fight, but once that left hook lands, it's game over. So right now, I don't have a pick necessarily. I'm just very excited for that fight and what's to come with that. Because if he could be that 3-division champion, that's insane to me. You know, when he came into the UFC, I figured he was going to have a good run. I was like, maybe he'll get the 185 strat, but he's blown my expectations like through the roof. Like this, I don't know if I could doubt this guy in any fight now.
Yeah, and I'm not going to give my pick yet, but if Tai Tuivasa floored you, that's all I got to say. Now, one last question before we get out of here. Coach Santino, could you share some best practices on how to lose belly fat? Specifically, I drive a truck full time, and I would like to get it under control before I can't see my feet or my pecker.
Wait, coach, hold on. Don't answer this one yet. Let me go get my notebook so I can write this down.
I mean, the biggest thing with losing weight, belly fat, was so you can't do like spot fat reduction. You can't like do a lot of curls and fat moves off your arms or legs, or, you know, it's kind of universal. And fat is really, it's all diet. It's calories in versus calories out. You know, of course, exercise is going to help you, but somebody like you, if you're a truck driver, you're sitting there just drinking sodas nonstop and eating and snacking, and you're not, you know, you're not exercising. So calories in versus calories out is really easy to topple that scale in the calories in direction. So I would suggest getting diet sodas, water, sparkle waters, anything, you know, without sugar. And then, man, some protein shakes to try and keep you full as, you know, as much as you can while you're driving in the boredom, and try to do something that takes the boredom away when you're driving, whether it's a podcast or music or something. So that's my 10-second response to that.
Yeah, and I'll say do 25 push-ups before you go to sleep and do 25 push-ups when you wake up in the morning. Just do it.
Yep, there you go. Not while you're driving the truck, though.
Drink a shit ton of water.
And if you're looking for a sparkling water recommendation, I gave a pop for the Lent. So I think I've tried every single sparkling water in the grocery store. These Fresca sparkling soda waters, pretty fucking good.
Are those the one?
I don't think any of them are the one, but this is as close as it gets to the real thing. So
nice.
All right, well, gentlemen, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to speak with me right here, right now, on Half the Battle. Coach Santino, is your book out yet?
My book comes out May 19th. It's available for pre-order right now. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes and Nobles. If you guys follow me on Instagram, it's Santino DeFranco, and then on Twitter, it's at Tino DeFranco. I'll put a link up. But yeah, the book is the sports performance Bible, but it's not for MMA people. I intentionally wrote it so it was for the regular human, or any person, whether you are a weekend warrior, whether you're a parent of a kid athlete, child athlete, whether you're just trying to get in shape for your wedding, or if you're a pro fighter or a pro athlete. So it is the sports performance Bible. So pick it up.
Yeah, this is what it looks like. It's awesome from the man himself, and there's all kinds
Henry
of...
Cejudo wrote my foreword. You know, so Henry did that. I've got some Tracy and Zombie quotes in there. And you know, I interviewed a lot of really high level people for that. You guys probably know Dr. Mike Israetel from Instagram, Brett Contreras, the booty guy, you know, or the glute guy. There's some fun nuggets in there.
Awesome. Well, I've started off. I really like it, so I can't wait to finish it. Make sure y'all check it out. Feezy, talk to the fans. Where can they follow you? What you got going on? Talk to us.
Yeah, you guys could hit all my socials. It's all the same it's at Baby _. And I'm trying to be as engaging on X as I can while the fights are going on. I'm right there with Dan tweeting away. I think every time I refresh, it's either a tweet from me or a post from him. So always follow me on X. Give out free plays on my Instagram. I drop my full card prediction on both my platforms. And if you want to get my picks, the link's in my bio on both of my social medias. And if you're watching this show and you want to get a promo code, just message me Half the Battle, and I'll shoot you a 50% promo. And you're going to love what you see. You know, it's not just about giving out these picks. I have a really great community in our Discord, and we're just there shooting the shit and talking fights. And whether or not we win, it's always a fun time in there. So shout out to the Rhino gang. And I appreciate all of you guys that are watching this video. And Dan and Coach, I appreciate having this talk with you guys. I feel very honored to be able to talk fights with OGs in the game like you guys. So I appreciate that. And I'll definitely be purchasing that book. Let me know how many books I have to purchase to get some Henry Cejudo memorabilia. And I will.
Hey, and send me an invite to that Discord. I'd love to be in there and hang out with y'all. You know what I'm saying? And Coach, I know we promoted your book, but is there anything else you want to tell the fans before we get out of here?
No, that's it, man. You know, I just appreciate you having me come on. I love talking fights. I'm out of the fight game in terms of just retiring from coaching, but you know, MMA is fun. I could talk it all day. I could talk, you know, jiu-jitsu all day, fighting all day, sports performance and strength and conditioning all day. It's fun for me. I love it. So thanks for having me on. Let me keep talking.
You got a 50% off your Patreon for the fans too?
Done. Gosh, how will we do that? I don't even know how to set that up.
Hey, well, just how about this? If they message you that they watch you on Half the Battle, figure out a way to hook them up.
Yeah. DM me on Instagram and I will figure out whatever it is to hook you up.
And then
I'll make Brandon do that because I'm not the tech guy.
And Brandon and Santino, hook me up with an invite to the Discord too, my friends. And hey,
now that I can do. I know.
Awesome.
Well, I think I know how to do that. If not, I'll have Brandon help me with that too.
Hey,
yeah, same here.
Appreciate y'all. To all the fans, thank you all so much for all your support. I sincerely appreciate it. Please smash the like button, hit the subscribe, hype up the video, leave me a comment. It's sincerely appreciated. Shout out to the fans. Shout out to the GOAT Meticulous for the incredible graphics. And of course, to my amazing guests. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.